Have you been wronged by bad rulings post-Alliance Insight? Improperly resolved Mitsurugi effects that essentially popped your bubble? Well, it stops today. We aren't getting cheated by PE miners anymore. And I go back to my bread and butter, rulings, and rulings that will save your game. Hey guys, this is Tombox, and today we're going to be going over some of the most commonly misplayed card effects via Mitsurugi. If you haven't been playing Mitsurugi or played very much Mitsurugi in the past format, it's going to be a lot more relevant now considering they are the top contender right now. It is the deck to beat, and at the very least, you should be playing properly against them, and they shouldn't be misdeclaring certain effects that would cause you to mischain, cause improper games that it might get you both penalized, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I got a couple of additional rulings related to Malice, and one additional bonus question for you guys, just to test your knowledge a little bit as we kind of get back into gear here at MST TV. You know, I've been away for about almost 3 weeks. I'll get back into making counter guides and how to beat videos once I get 100 games or two in the current format, so I can kind of describe it to you properly, and that would be the only way to do it. Give it with experience, right? And without further ado, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, and let's get into some of the rulings that's probably going to save you in the near future. The first card is going to be Mitsurugi Prayers. I know I've done a ruling video on this particular archetype previously, but I haven't really gotten into the depths of reading the card itself and kind of, you know, targeting specific parts are leading to these significant misplays. So let's read over the card first. Now, when you activate this card, you can tribute one reptile monster from your hand or field, apply one of these effects. Or if you tributed a monster at activation, you can apply both these effects in sequence. The first effect is going to be add one Mitsurugi monster from your deck to your hand, and then the second effect is take 800 damage, then you can special summon one Mitsurugi monster from your hand or graveyard, but it cannot attack directly. You can only activate one Mitsurugi Prayers per turn. Okay, so there's 3 illegal claims on this card that are very, very common, and typically, I'm just going to say typically, that the more well-versed player is going to use against a lesser experienced players to kind of weasel their way out of a bad situation, gain additional information, or even block your opponent from activating a hand trap against you. So claim number 1, you can't ghost spell this card because there's no monsters in my graveyard. Well, first of all, that's completely false, because you can always ash this card, you can always ghost spell this card because it includes an adding of a monster and special summon of a monster from the graveyard. And why are both of these constantly applying? It's because 1, it says apply one of these effects. Applying one of these effects is different from you can activate one of these effects, but I'll get into the details of the entire card text as I break it down bit by bit. But that's the first claim. Second claim is that you have to do both effects when you tribute a monster during the activation, and that is just false, because it states if you tribute a monster at activation, you can apply both effects in sequence. It's optional. You don't have to do both. And that kind of leads to my third point here. The opponent asking you which effect you're using, essentially trying to know which hand trap they can and cannot use, or which one they should save just in case. And to that I say, this card, because it says you can apply one of these effects, or you apply one of these effects, you don't tell your opponent anything until resolution. I'm going to be activating this card, I'm going to be trading. You just don't have to say any more information, because the more information you say, the more opportunities they have to use the correct card against you. And the thing is, that's not information that you have to tell your opponent. You don't have to tell the intention of this card, because it's apply one of these effects. You only apply the action of the effect once you get to resolution, not before then. So this can help you save. So if someone asks, oh, which one are you using? You don't have to answer that legally, because you shouldn't answer that question. All right, does that make sense? And these are some of the claims that some people have made against this. And there's even a gray area in this card that people argued during time when they created an illegal game state due to the fact that they can't add a Mitsurugi monster from the deck to the hand because they don't have an option. But we'll get into that in a second. So let's break down the card text now. So when you activate this card, you can tribute a reptile monster from your hand. That is an optional thing that's happening before the semicolon, so that's happening at the activation. So the moment you play the card, you can choose the tribute. There's no response. It can't block you on this because it's still at the time of activation. Okay, so that part is pretty straightforward. Now you can apply one of these effects. The moment it says apply one of these effects or apply both these effects, due to the word apply is in there, apply one of these effects, you don't really do anything or declare anything until the resolution of the card. And because it's apply, so this is kind of important here, one of these effects, essentially both effects in there are considered as part of the card text available, so you can always use Ash Blossom because you can add a Mitsurugi monster from your deck to your hand, or you can take 800 damage and special summon Mitsurugi from your hand or graveyard. But what if I don't have a monster in the graveyard? It doesn't matter, because this is now a card that is resolving at resolution, and you only choose the active action during resolution. Therefore, you could chain additional cards to put a Mitsurugi monster into the graveyard, and then you get the special summon from the graveyard. So it just believes in the potential that you can special summon a monster from the graveyard. Therefore, you are always going to be able to be negated by the Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion. So that part will also always apply. Most of the time it will always apply, but in the general context with nothing else involved, yeah, you can Ash this card, you can Bell this card in response. Okay. And then you can apply both these effects in sequence if you tributed. Well, that's a thing here. You don't have to do both, but you do have to do at least one of them. Because I've seen people say, oh, you have to special summon, or you have to take that damage even if you can't special summon, because they want the opponent to take a bit of burn damage closer to time so that maybe they can win in time. Well, they can just choose to add the monster if they want to, or even if they can't special summon, they can technically still tribute the monster. And that's where some of the misplays occur from lesser experienced players with Mitsurugi. It's like, oh, I can't actually special summon, or whatever the case may be. Because this card doesn't exactly target, so people that are using Bystials, remember, this card doesn't target, so the Bystials don't really matter unless you don't actually have an available option for you to resummon. Aside from that, you still get yourself a proper summon, and you just work with it, whatever that you have within that realm. Now, there's a gray area in this card when it comes to time. So some people have active Mitsurugi Prayer, hoping that they can add a monster from the deck to the hand, only realizing that perhaps they sided out extra copies of Habikiri, they may have sided out the extra copies of the monsters that they want to see opened. That's fine, but then when it gets close to time, they're activating the card, you're like, oh, they resolved the chain, they have multiple cards within the activation here. Okay, and then when they get to the resolving of Mitsurugi Prayers, they're looking through their deck and be like, I don't have a monster, and they're like looking at the clock and they're like, oh, well, I guess that's an illegal resolution, we're gonna have to revert the game state. Well, what is the last agreed upon legal game state? Number one, Mitsurugi Prayers essentially always can be activated. Because the special summoning of a Mitsurugi monster is technically optional, the only part that's truly mandatory is taking the 800 damage. And if you can't add the monster to your hand, are you forced to take the 800 damage? That's going to be depending on the judge, because the activation of this card technically is legal. Clearly, only the resolution was illegal. They may be forced to choose a different effect to apply, because the card activation itself is fully legal. It's what they're choosing to do at resolution that is not. This part is going to depend on the judge, and we've seen people argue that, oh, they don't want to take the damage, blah, 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 blah. Well, the thing is, this is a card that is always going to be able to activate due to the self-burning part. And only if you burn yourself do you actually get to special summon. And based on wording of the conjunction there, it's kind of hard to get out of it. And finally, the third part here, take 100 damage, then a special summon of Mitsurugi. And both of these, you can apply them in sequence. Again, well, you can just add the monster, choose not to take the damage. You can just choose to tribute the monster away and not do the special summoning part in case you're worried about taking damage. It's completely fine. As long as you're able to add a monster. I get that some people want to use the effect of Mitsurugi Prayers to completely just dodge like imperm. I mean, that's pretty common to dodge targeting effects on one of your Mitsurugi cards, one of your reptile cards, and that's fine. But again, you don't have to tell your opponent which one you're using. So that's a little bit of saving grace for the people playing the Mitsurugi cards, given that you can legally add a monster from the deck to the hand. The best way to kind of resolve this particular card is that, yes, you can Ash this card. Yes, you can Ghost Spell this card. If your opponent doesn't exactly have anything that they can add to their hand, are they forced to take the 800 damage because that's the only other effect that they can truly apply here, or is it going to revert? Well, we're going to have to let the judges answer that one in the comment section. But if we're going to revert the game set to a point where both players agree is legal, how far are they going to revert to? Is it before they activate the card and basically nullify the entire chain, or are they going to go back to where the chain is resolving and they take the 800 damage there? So that's going to be one of those things that you're gonna have to learn to deal with. And I've seen people force people try to make them take that damage a lot of the times because it is significant advantage, especially when the clock is running down close to zero. Next we have Mitsurugi Ritual, which is the exact opposite of Mitsurugi prayers when it comes to applying the effect, because this is activate one of these effects. So based on the card text here, this card can be used to ritual summon any reptile ritual monster, activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect of Mitsurugi ritual once per turn. So each of these bullet points can only be used once per turn. And since it says use, if you try to use it the first time and it gets negated, you cannot you'll try it again. You have to use the other bullet points, so that's the limitation. This card's technically not once per turn. You can activate it multiple times, but the effect that you apply has to be the other bullet point that you have not used. If you use both, then you can't activate this card anymore, so that's the limitation. So the first effect is you can ritual summon one reptile ritual from your deck by tributing reptile monsters from your hand or field whose total level equals to the level of the ritual monster. Second bullet point effect, ritual summon one reptile ritual monster from your hand by tributing up to 2 reptile monsters from your hand, deck, or field whose level equals to the level of the ritual monster. So the first question is, can I Ash Blossom this card? And the answer is yes, you can, but you can only do so if they declare that they are going to choose to ritual summon out the reptile ritual monster from the deck. If they're choosing to summon from the hand, Ash doesn't really have anything in play here, and I'll explain that in a second. I know the comment section usually goes pretty wild on this because of just bad comparison or just Yu-Gi-Oh rules in general. It's just hard to explain, even at an expert level, but ritual summoning out a ritual reptile monster from the deck, you are special summoning out a monster from the deck. Therefore, you are going to be able to be hit by Ash. You do not tribute any of those reptiles because for a ritual summon, it's not really a cost. It's part of the way that you perform a ritual summon, which you apply it later on. It's part of the effect. You're sending them as a card effect, not as a cost. So yeah, you get to keep those monsters, but that's the only time you can truly use Ash Blossom against the Mitsurugi ritual, if they declare they're summoning from the deck. However, if they decline that they're summoning from the hand, you cannot use Ash Blossom, even if they are tributing monsters from the deck. But I know the comparison's always going to be, oh, Shaddoll Fusion, Branded Fusion, you're sending fusion materials from the deck to the graveyard. Well, the difference here is fusion summoning and sending the materials from the deck to the graveyard, that does count, whereas tributing and destroying cards are essentially like mechanics that you're applying, and they don't equate to sending cards from the deck to graveyard. Technically, you can banish them, if anything, because the game states that they're banished. But it's a game mechanic versus, it's a game mechanic versus game mechanic. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! That's the easiest way to explain it. I'm not going to go into details, as I can't probably do it justice myself, but I'm sure the experts out there in the internet or in the comment section are free to answer you. But yeah, you can't Ash Blossom when they're tributing from the deck, because it's kind of like Fire Kings. You can't stop the Garunix from destroying a card in the deck. It just says you can't stop Mitsurugi Ritual from tributing from the deck. All right, there's just 2 more things to talk about Mitsurugi here. Number 1 is regarding the trigger effect of the ritual monsters, especially the part where they are tributed. If this card is tributed, you can add 1 Mitsurugi card from your deck to your hand, except for the same named card. Then you can special summon out this card. So this particular effect, if you can't add the Mitsurugi card from your deck to your hand, whether you be locked out by Droll or anything along those lines, then you can't special summon this card because of the conjunction of you have to do the first part, which is you can add 1 Mitsurugi card from your deck to your hand. Then you can, due to the then, if the first part does not occur, the second part cannot occur. As simple as that. So if you're under Droll, that's why this card also can get Ash when it's in the graveyard. Usually people are smart enough to kind of arrange their chain links to the point that this isn't something that they can Ash, which makes a lot of sense. So that's a pretty big part of it. Even if this card gets DD Crowed, you still get to add the card, you just don't get the summon. Even if this card is banished, it will still summon itself because it doesn't care about where it is resolving. So it's another very big part when it comes to the rituals, the Ame no Murakumo or the Habakiri. Those monsters, if they are banished on tribute, they still get to summon themselves back, which is why the banish-based cards aren't completely fully effective against them. And I guess on the other hand, they have to be special summoned first for you to summon them back onto the field, because it's in an area of public knowledge, it's in the graveyard, it is banished, but if they're not summoned out properly, you don't get to summon them back. But luckily that's the second part of the effect, not the first, so they still get to add the card. All right, that makes sense. That's a pretty simple one, but you know, it does matter, especially when it comes to Murakumo, because someone wants to nuke your entire board. So just some little basic Nomi versus semi-Nomi monsters, and this is essentially a semi-Nomi monster. Now when it comes to resolving Ame no Murakumo, this card has caused the most amount of improperly resolved chains based on how this one is worded and based on how people communicate this card. So this card, essentially players, you know, they've been discarding cards mid-chain to ensure that, you know, their previous chain link won't be negated. Remember, Ame no Murakumo doesn't exactly add a cost. It gives you an optional effect to your opponent, whether they can choose to discard a card so that the next chain link won't be negated, or if they don't discard a card, that particular chain link will be negated. But that is an effect. It's a conditional effect that applies to the chain afterwards, but it is not adding a cost to it, so you don't have to immediately apply anything to it. And this had led to some incorrect private information revealed to the opponent, and this is something that if you're going to be playing Ame no Murakumo as a judge, because you're the one playing the card, you should be enforcing the game state, as this is one of your cards. You should stop your opponent from doing something that would reveal additional information in their hand. I'll chain Ame no Murakumo to your card, and on resolution you get to choose whether or not you want to discard a card or not, and not say, oh, if you don't discard a card, your effect will be negated. This causes some people to just immediately shotgun throw away their card, especially during the early release of this card. That's what's been happening a lot. And because if you throw away a card, some people force you, oh, that means you're resolving the chain because you decide not to chain any more cards. You can't chain any more cards. But what if you do have another chain available? What if you have like a droplet that can negate Ame no Murakumo and you know, relieve yourself from discarding a card entirely? Like, this is something that has occurred. And so the best way to kind of play this card properly, so that you guys don't get like a double PE minor or something along those lines, because it's up to both players to maintain the game state, is whenever someone chains Murakumo, stop to think for a second. And if you have nothing, say pass priority, so that the opponent who played the Murakumo effect, they can also chain additional cards on top, because they can. And so you don't just like end the chain entirely. If you do have a response, you can say on the chain of Murakumo, do X, Y, and Z. So this indicates that the chain has not resolved yet. And that's very important, because you don't accidentally discard like additional hand traps. You didn't discard the additional option you have in your hand. It's like very revealing when you play this one improperly, especially to an expert, to like one of the pro level players. They'll take advantage of everything that they can see. And if like just went too fast, you'll never see that the really strong players do anything like that. Like when someone activates Ame no Murakumo, they don't just go shotgun throw away their card. They'll be like, oh, it resolves. Oh, they stop to think about it, because they don't want to put themselves in a bad position. And this is one card that I hope everyone resolves properly, because it's a really big one. And this final ruling here is just March Hare for Malice players. This is just a simple PSA reminder that March Hare does not summon herself from banish. I'll own it. I said it incorrectly in a previous video. I misspoke about that card myself. But instead, if March Hare does get banished, she adds back a different banished Malice monster back into the hand. And that's essentially what she does. She's not another name that summons herself back. You do have to pay life points to get that monster back, but she does have a quick effect summon effect, which allows her to banish another Malice card from the graveyard to summon herself from the hand. So that's also like, she does have a summon effect. She summons herself from hand, and she's a free special summon, a free extender, making her extremely powerful, that can line up another monster to be summoned back from the graveyard, which is why this is crazy. Now note that this particular card isn't a cost, so that also means that you can chain Lancia to the card so that they don't get the banish. And due to the fact that it says, and if you do special summon this card, if the first part does not happen, then it doesn't happen. You can also of course use Ghost Spell on this card, because March Hare is trying to banish a monster from the graveyard, so it's another card that you can use Ghost Spell on, which is why Ghost Spell is also seeing a rise in popularity. But yeah, that's all I really have for this card. And finally, let's bring this back into our ruling segment, pop quiz of the day. So what happens in this particular scenario? So we have a duo drive with the materials on the field, and there is now an activation of a Ryzeal duo drive. The opponent chains Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit to the Ryzeal activation, and then the Ryzeal player chains Book of Moon to that monster. What happens to that Ryzeal duo drive? You guys have 5 seconds to answer this. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you say that the Ryzeal survives, then you'd be incorrect. Ghost Ogre still destroys that monster, even if it is flipped face down, as it is still technically that monster. It did not move out of anywhere. Sure, the stats and any applied effects might have been reset, but it's still that card, and therefore it will be destroyed and sent to the graveyard. A common thing about regarding to that card, like, oh, it's not a different card at all. Well, Judgment Dragon, if Judgment Dragon activates its effect, nuked every card off the board, and you chain Book of Moon to that Judgment Dragon, does Judgment Dragon blow itself up? It does not. There you have it. No, the duo drive will not be able to gain additional cards out of the deck. Well, that part is completely out of the question since you did not detach the material. All right, that was a fun little ruling quiz for you guys. And look, that's all I got for this video, guys. I will be jumping back into making counter guides and giving you guys live gameplay here in the studio, especially when I bought so many new cards that I really want to try out and get you guys ready for Justice Hunters near the future. So make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell. I want you guys to not get screwed over by the rules. I want you guys not to get screwed over by things that you don't understand. That's why we're getting into the nitty-gritty details of the card text. And that just makes all of us better players in general. But yeah, I'll get back into the counter guides and stuff once I give myself a couple 100 hours into this game, because I don't want to deliver stuff based off of just reading. I want to experience it myself and kind of give you all the conditionals and all the details about that, and make sure that, you know, things work out for everyone. Thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you all in the next one, and best of luck, bless your polls, and I'll see you all in the next one.